The New Horizon colony had always been strange to humans. It was not the planet itself. They had grown accustomed to its orange skies and jagged rock formations. But the people, or rather, the beings who lived there alongside humans. Humans were small in number, scattered among aliens of all shapes, colors, and sizes. Most of these species had skin that shimmered like metal, eyes with more than two pupils, or limbs that bent in ways humans could not imagine. The humans tried not to stare, though it was difficult sometimes. But even as they adjusted, there was one thing that made their skin crawl: the stares. It started subtly. One day, a human engineer named Eli noticed a group of alien technicians glancing at him as he walked through the main hub. At first, he thought it was normal curiosity. Humans were unusual on this colony. They laughed loudly, spoke with expressive faces, and their movements were full of emotion. The aliens, on the other hand, were precise, measured, almost robotic. Their gestures were minimal, and they had strange ways of communicating that humans barely understood. Eli ignored it, thinking it would fade. But it did not fade. The stares followed him everywhere. When he went to the cafeteria, 3 aliens at a table across the room would turn their multifaceted eyes toward him. When he repaired a failing airlock, a technician who had been working nearby would stop, tilt its head in a strange angle, and watch him without saying a word. Sometimes, Eli would catch the faintest hum of some sort of vibration, like the aliens were scanning him. He mentioned it to his friend Mara, who worked in life support systems, and she laughed nervously. "You're imagining things," Mara said. "Everyone stares a little when a human walks by. It's normal." "I just feel it." They were engineers, pilots, medics, and miners, not specimens. Yet somehow the aliens acted as if humans were both fascinating and alarming. Then the Colony Council announced the lottery. It was not broadcast at first. It was a closed meeting, urgent and sudden. Colony residents were summoned to the central dome. The humans, curious and nervous, joined the larger crowd of aliens. The council's voice came over the comms, calm and formal. "The colony mating lottery will commence next cycle. All residents without bonded partners are eligible. This is mandatory. Participation ensures population stability and genetic health across all species." Most humans could not even reproduce with aliens in any conventional way. They murmured among themselves, confused and uneasy. Then the council added something chilling. "Humans are eligible and highly prioritized for participation. Detailed instructions will follow." Eli felt his stomach tighten. The stares now made sense, but they made no sense at all. Humans were not meant to be part of this. They were here to build, repair, and explore, not to be chosen for breeding programs. And yet here it was, official, formal, unavoidable. In the following days, humans tried to understand why. They asked council representatives, but the answers were vague and evasive. "Humans have unique biological qualities," a spokesperson said. "You are more adaptable and resilient than most species here. Your genetics are highly valued." Humans were not just observed, they were needed, studied, and possibly controlled. Some humans felt anger, some felt fear, some felt a strange pride, though they did not yet understand it. They had survived on Earth, adapted to impossible environments, and now, somehow, they were considered crucial to the survival of alien species across the galaxy. Life at the colony grew tense. The stares intensified. Humans moved cautiously, noticing subtle changes in alien behavior. A metal-skinned worker would pass close by and pause, scanning them. Some would approach in groups, asking indirect questions about human biology or habits. Every glance, every gesture seemed calculated. And through it all, humans whispered among themselves, trying to plan to protect each other and to understand what this lottery would mean. Eli and Mara decided to investigate. They could not rely on council statements alone. They accessed old colony logs, searching for information about the lottery's history. The records were incomplete, redacted, and often technical, but patterns emerged. The lottery was not new. It had existed for decades, mostly among species facing declining fertility. Some records described hybrid offspring, raised for survival purposes. Other records were vague, leaving hints of political and social tension. One thing was clear: humans had never participated before. Yet now, the Colony Council insisted that humans were highly prioritized. Many of them seemed uncomfortable with the lottery themselves, seeing it as necessary but emotionally complex. Some were nervous, others detached. But all eyes turned to humans with a mixture of hope, fear, and expectation. Humans were an anomaly. Their bodies were resilient, their minds inventive, their emotions strong. Unlike many species, humans could bond, empathize, and improvise. The galaxy had not just noticed, they depended on it. The next week was chaotic. The council issued schedules, forms, and preliminary medical tests. Some humans refused, walking away from the process. Others reluctantly submitted. Humans discussed strategy in hushed tones. "We can't just accept this blindly," Eli said to a small group of friends. "But we can't ignore it either. If we fight, we risk everything. If we cooperate, we might gain leverage." Some humans tried to ignore it, pretending not to notice, but Eli found it impossible. He began noticing patterns, groups of aliens who always watched together, timing their observation with specific human routines. There was intelligence behind it, a calculation, not curiosity. One evening, Eli stayed late in the maintenance sector. He was repairing a damaged drone when a figure approached. It was an alien, tall and lithe, with translucent skin showing hints of flowing fluids beneath. Its eyes had 4 pupils, and it tilted its head as it studied him. "You work differently than your kind usually do," the alien said. Its voice was melodic, almost musical. "You adapt faster, improvise faster. We did not expect this." "What do you mean?" "For this lottery." He thought of Mara, of his friends, of all humans on the colony. Survival depended on choice, on courage, and on understanding the rules of a system designed by species older and more advanced than themselves. The night passed with Eli thinking. He looked out at the orange horizon, the jagged mountains, and the faint glimmer of stars beyond. Humanity had survived ice ages, wars, and starvation. They had thrived where others failed, and now they were needed again, not by humans, not even by their own species, but by the galaxy. A sense of purpose stirred in him, along with dread. The lottery was approaching. Humans would have to face it whether they wanted to or not. But for the first time, Eli realized something. Humans were not just participants, they were unpredictable. They were resourceful, they were clever, creative, and resilient. The aliens may have watched, studied, and calculated, but humans had one advantage no algorithm could anticipate: choice. And as the first warning messages of the lottery arrived in the human quarters the next morning, Eli felt the stirrings of determination. They would not be passive, they would not simply comply. They would survive, and perhaps in doing so they would redefine what it meant to be valuable in the galaxy. Humans whispered to each other in tight circles. Strategies, theories, and fears circulated. Some suggested hiding, others suggested resisting. Eli spoke last. "We have one advantage no one else does. We are human, we adapt, we survive. And we will make them understand. If they want our help, they will earn it." And humans were about to show that survival was more than instinct. It was strategy, courage, and unity. The New Horizon colony had changed. Humans had noticed. And the galaxy had not yet realized what it had just unleashed. The days following the lottery announcement were tense. Humans moved through the colony with cautious eyes, feeling the weight of attention on them. The stares had grown more focused, more deliberate, and the whispers in alien tongues had changed. Where once there had been curiosity, now there was expectation. Humans were beginning to understand that the lottery was not simply a procedure. It was a test, and they were being measured on qualities they did not yet fully comprehend. Eli and Mara spent long hours in the maintenance bay, poring over colony records, council memos, and encrypted communication logs. Most of the information was fragmentary, leaving more questions than answers. But patterns began to emerge. The lottery had existed for generations, primarily in species whose populations were declining. Hybridization programs had been attempted before, but many species had failed because their genetic traits were too fragile, their bonding abilities too limited. And then humans appeared on New Horizon, a small, adaptable minority with no obvious ties to the lottery. Yet now the council was insisting that humans were highly prioritized. The reason was not fully explained, but the data suggested a truth humans were only beginning to realize. They were rare, resilient, and almost shockingly versatile. Mara leaned back, rubbing her eyes. "So we're biologically special, that's why they want us. But that also means we're a resource. We're being studied, evaluated, and maybe controlled. They don't care about us as people, they care about what we can produce." Some of the observers hesitate, or they measure us in ways that don't make sense. We're unpredictable, and that scares them. Others advocated cooperation, seeing an opportunity to secure humanity's place in the colony and perhaps influence the rules. The debate grew heated, but one thing became clear. Humans were not helpless. They had strengths the aliens could not replicate, creativity, adaptability, and the ability to work as a team under pressure. Then, the first real challenge arrived. A sudden technical failure struck the colony's power grid, plunging entire sections into darkness. Life support systems faltered in the outer sectors, and emergency alarms echoed through the domes. Panic rippled among the residents. Aliens scrambled to repair the damage, but many were ill-prepared for the unpredictable failures. Complex systems, delicate conduits, and unfamiliar machinery made improvisation difficult. Eli saw an opportunity. "We can help," he said. "We understand these systems. We know how to adapt when things break. We can save lives." Aliens watched, some in awe, some in disbelief, as humans coordinated complex repairs faster than any automated system or alien technician could manage. One particular scene drew attention. A critical oxygen pump had failed in the hydroponics sector. The pump's replacement parts were inaccessible due to the collapse of the access tunnel. Eli and Mara, along with a small human team, entered the damaged area. They assessed the failure in seconds, improvising with spare tubing, reinforced wires, and makeshift seals. Hours later, the pump was running again. Plants, animals, and even human residents dependent on the oxygen supply were saved. The colony's observers were stunned. A council representative approached Eli afterward, their voice cautious. "Your species' methods are unusual. You repair, adapt, and improvise with speed and accuracy we did not anticipate." The lottery had initially cast humans as subjects to be measured, but now they were recognized as contributors, leaders, and innovators. Their value was no longer purely biological. It was intellectual, social, and practical. Yet even as respect grew, fear remained. Some aliens opposed the humans' rising influence, arguing that prioritizing humans in the lottery was dangerous. Others saw the humans as essential, a key to ensuring the survival of multiple species. Tensions flared in council meetings, and arguments became heated. The humans, while still a minority, were now at the center of political debates they had not asked to join. One evening, Eli and Mara were summoned to a private meeting with an alien named Kale, a high-ranking scientist with translucent skin and 4 luminous eyes. Kale's expression was serious. "Humans," Kale said, "you are the most adaptable species we have encountered. Your biology is resilient, your problem-solving exceptional, and your emotional bonds unique. Across our records, no other species combines these traits at the level you do. That is why you are prioritized for the lottery. These qualities make you invaluable, but they also make you unpredictable. We cannot survive without the traits you bring." Plans were made, strategies discussed, and alliances formed. They recognized that the coming lottery would not only test their resilience, but also their capacity for leadership, negotiation, and cooperation. They had to be smart, not only to survive, but to ensure that humanity's rights, freedom, and identity were preserved. The lottery began quietly, with initial medical screenings, compatibility tests, and observational studies. Humans approached the process cautiously, participating just enough to gather information. They noted patterns, recorded observations, and shared data with each other. Every test, every observation, every glance from an alien observer was analyzed. Humans were learning, adapting, and preparing. Then came the first real confrontation. An extremist faction of aliens attempted to manipulate the lottery by forcibly removing humans from the selection pool, believing that humans were an unpredictable threat to their species' dominance. The humans, using a combination of ingenuity, teamwork, and calm improvisation, managed to escape the attempt. They repaired damaged transport vehicles on the fly, used redundant communication channels to coordinate with allies, and leveraged their knowledge of the colony's layout to outmaneuver the extremists. By the time the council intervened, humans had already demonstrated control of the situation. The extremists were contained, and the humans had ensured the safety of all residents in the affected sector. For the first time, many aliens saw humans not as subjects, but as protectors. Their intelligence, adaptability, and courage had saved lives, and the perspective on humans began to shift once again. The humans also discovered more about the lottery's deeper purpose. Data leaks and historical records revealed that the program was designed not only to maintain population numbers, but also to create hybrid alliances that could endure harsh planetary conditions, resist diseases, and survive crises. Many species had failed because their offspring could not cope with the stresses of life on New Horizon. Humans, however, were naturally suited for these conditions. Their adaptability, emotional cohesion, and problem-solving skills meant they could thrive where others could not. Eli and Mara realized that humans were not being used, they were being tested. The galaxy did not just want their genetics, it wanted their ingenuity, cooperation, and resilience. The humans' choices would determine not only their own fate, but the fate of the entire colony. One night, as Eli walked through the quiet halls of the colony, he reflected on the journey so far. The stares that had once filled him with fear were now tinged with respect, curiosity, and hope. Humans were no longer passive participants. They were agents of change, capable of shaping the outcome of the lottery through their actions, strategy, and leadership. Mara joined him, carrying a tablet filled with the latest observational data. Eli, look at this. The other species, they're starting to follow our methods. Teams are reorganizing, adapting more quickly, improvising solutions we've suggested. We're influencing them whether they realize it or not. We have to show them what humans really bring to the table. If they want our help, they will have to earn it, not take it for granted. And when the lottery is complete, they will see that humans are more than just a species to study. We are leaders, innovators, and partners. Each day brought new challenges, new problems to solve, and new opportunities to demonstrate their worth. The lottery loomed ahead, but humans no longer feared it. They were prepared, not just to survive, but to influence the outcome. They had shown the aliens that human strength was not only in biology, but in ingenuity, courage, and cooperation. By the end of the cycle, the humans had fundamentally altered the perception of their species on New Horizon. No longer were they merely subjects for observation. They were essential participants in the colony's survival and success. Aliens who had once been indifferent or hostile began to recognize that humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and invaluable. The stage was set for the final act of the lottery, where humans would face the ultimate challenge, not only to demonstrate their biological potential, but to assert their agency, protect their identity, and reshape the future of the colony. As the cycle drew to a close, Eli and Mara stood on a balcony overlooking the vast expanse of New Horizon. Lights flickered in the domes below, shadows danced across the jagged terrain, and the stars beyond the atmosphere shimmered with distant promise. Eli felt a sense of determination rising within him. Humans had survived every test so far, not because the galaxy had valued them, but because they had chosen to act, adapt, and lead. And when the lottery reached its climax, the galaxy would learn a simple truth. Humans were not just survivors, they were the force that could redefine the future. The day of the lottery finally arrived. The colony buzzed with tension, excitement, and unease. Aliens from every species gathered in the central dome, their forms strange and varied under the bright artificial lights. Humans, though smaller in number, were at the center of attention. They had prepared for this moment, knowing that the outcome would not only determine their future, but could reshape the entire colony. Eli stood alongside Mara and the other human representatives. They had spent weeks analyzing patterns, studying alien behavior, and devising strategies. Unlike most species, humans could see beyond the immediate tests. They understood that the lottery was not just about biology, it was about choice, cooperation, and intelligence. A council member stepped forward, their voice echoing through the dome. Residents of New Horizon, the lottery will now commence. All eligible participants will be assigned to bonding partners based on genetic compatibility, social cohesion, and survival potential. Unlike some species who hesitated or followed rigid protocols, humans improvised, adapting to each procedure with flexibility and confidence. The first test was a simulation of survival in extreme conditions. Participants were placed in a controlled environment designed to mimic the harshest regions of New Horizon. Most species struggled to maintain balance, adapt to the shifting terrain, or manage limited resources. Humans, however, approached the challenge differently. They analyzed the environment, divided tasks efficiently, and worked together to stabilize the situation. Within hours, humans had not only survived but had improved the conditions, creating safe zones, water collection systems, and even ways to grow emergency food supplies. Aliens watched in awe. Some whispered among themselves, noting the humans' quick thinking and ability to coordinate. For the first time, many realized that humans were not only biologically adaptable, they were leaders, problem solvers, and innovators. Next came the test of social cohesion. Participants were placed in groups with aliens from other species, tasked with completing complex cooperative tasks under stress. While some species struggled with communication or coordination, humans excelled. They quickly established clear roles, mediated conflicts, and encouraged cooperation. Their ability to bond, empathize, and inspire others became evident. Aliens who had doubted their worth began to see the humans in a new light. Mara noted, "They thought they could control us with this lottery. They didn't expect humans to turn it into a demonstration of everything we bring to the table." Systems failed, resources dwindled, and time became critical. Most species panicked, adhering rigidly to their training and protocols. Humans, however, relied on creativity and teamwork. They analyzed the situation, improvised solutions, and guided other participants through the crisis. During the simulation, a critical breach occurred in the colony's central reactor. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and panic spread among the participants. Eli and Mara took charge. They organized humans and cooperative aliens into teams, assigning tasks based on skill and intuition rather than rigid hierarchy. They repaired damaged conduits, rerouted energy flows, and stabilized the reactor before it could fail catastrophically. By the time the Council intervened to end the simulation, it was clear that humans had not only passed the test, they had exceeded all expectations. The observers and Council members were stunned. Humans had demonstrated survival skills, leadership, problem-solving, and the ability to inspire cooperation across species. Kale, the scientist who had first explained humans' unique value, approached Eli and Mara afterward. "Your species' performance is unprecedented. You have not only proven your adaptability, but have also shown us that survival is more than genetics. It is intelligence, strategy, and unity. We underestimated your potential. We survive by thinking, choosing, and working together. That's what makes humans strong." The results were undeniable. Humans were essential not just for genetic compatibility, but for the stability, growth, and success of the colony. The lottery, once a program designed to measure and control, had become a demonstration of human ingenuity and leadership. In the following days, the humans proposed a radical shift. They suggested that the lottery continue only as a voluntary program, focused on mutual consent, cultural exchange, and cooperative survival strategies, not forced participation. They emphasized that humans would participate only under conditions of choice, respect, and shared responsibility. The Council was hesitant at first. The lottery had been a cornerstone of colony management for generations, but humans had proven that survival depended not solely on biology, but on intelligence, adaptability, and collaboration. Their argument was compelling. The Council voted to restructure the program, implementing the human proposal. Across the colony, the perception of humans transformed. They were no longer passive participants in alien programs. They were leaders, problem solvers, and partners. Aliens began adopting human strategies for cooperation, conflict resolution, and adaptation. Teams mixed more efficiently, communication improved, and the colony became more resilient. Eli and Mara watched as the colony evolved. Humans had not only survived the lottery, they had redefined it. The stares that had once caused fear and discomfort were now filled with respect, acknowledgement, and cautious admiration. Humans were recognized not just for their biological traits, but for their intelligence, courage, and capacity to inspire cooperation across species. The humans also realized something important. Their survival and success did not rely on dominance, manipulation, or force. It relied on creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to act with integrity and courage. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was more than biology. It was choice, strategy, and unity. Years later, New Horizon became known as a model colony. Hybrid species thrived not because they had been forced into compatibility, but because humans had introduced new approaches to survival, collaboration, and problem-solving. The lottery was no longer a mechanism of control. It was a program of shared growth, mutual respect, and voluntary cooperation. Eli reflected on the journey. Humans had arrived on New Horizon as a small, uncertain minority. They had faced suspicion, manipulation, and danger. Yet through ingenuity, teamwork, and resilience, they had turned fear into opportunity, observation into influence, and expectation into respect. They had not only survived, they had reshaped the future. Mara stood beside him. "We didn't just survive," she said quietly. "We changed the way they see humans. We showed them that survival isn't just about biology. It's about thinking, adapting, and working together." Humans had proven that being unpredictable, resourceful, and united was more powerful than any algorithm or ancient program. They had demonstrated that true strength lay not in domination, but in intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. As the orange skies of New Horizons stretched overhead, Eli and Mara watched the alien and human residents work together, building, repairing, and exploring. The stairs that once carried fear were now filled with respect. Humans had arrived as outsiders. They remained outsiders perhaps forever, but they were now recognized as equals, partners, and leaders in a galaxy that had once underestimated them. The lottery was over, but its lessons endured. Across the colony, species began to rethink their strategies, approaches, and understanding of survival. Humans had not only participated, they had changed the rules, and in doing so they had ensured that the future of New Horizon and perhaps the galaxy would be shaped by intelligence, courage, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. In the quiet of the central dome, Eli whispered to Mara, "We didn't just prove ourselves. We proved that humans matter, not just because of what we are, but because of what we can do together." They will remember what humans can do when they act with heart, mind, and unity. The colony had survived the lottery, but humanity had survived something greater. They had survived being underestimated, and they had turned that underestimation into their greatest strength. Humans were not just part of the galaxy. They were proof that survival depended not on instinct alone, but on intelligence, cooperation, and courage. They had shown the universe that when humans were counted, the outcome was never predictable, but it was always extraordinary.